Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Cole with AHK Coaching. I am a money and relationships expert, speaker, and coach. Thanks so much for joining me here on this video and for joining my channel. If you enjoy the video, please go ahead and give it a like, and love for you to subscribe to my channel. So today's video, we are going to dive into gender, sexism, money, and relationships, right? And talk about how this impacts our relationships, how it leads to financial stress, and how it can cause fighting, and what you can do to stop it. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about is that there is discrimination on the basis of gender in this country, right? There is sexism, it's real. And women are disproportionately affected by it. So, in the realm of finances, there are a couple of ways that this shows up. One that you may have heard of is the wage gap, the gender wage gap, that where women are paid, depending on estimates, anywhere from 78 to up into the 80s or 90%, but either way, not as much as men for similar jobs, right? So obviously, this doesn't seem very fair to most of us, and it's complicated why it happens and all the different inputs, but either way, we've seen it play out again and again. Another thing that is not as widely known, but still really important, is called the pink tax. And this is best seen when we look at the shelf at razors in the store, right? So for a man, you might have a dark blue, a black, a gray razor. For women, often there's something more like pink or purple. Well, for the same household goods, typically the women's goods are a higher price than the men's goods. And they're not made of anything different, maybe just a different color. But yet women are paying higher prices for these things. There's also taxes on tampons and other things like this. And so this creates certain kind of practical dynamics as far as women are earning less money, they are paying more money. There's a lot of expectations around, on average, how women are supposed to look, things like makeup and fashion. And, again, every individual is going to make their own choices, right? But when we're looking at a broader level, these things really are at play. So if we kind of zoom in to you and your life and your relationship, well, what does this mean, and how can you use this information to stop fighting and having more intimacy, more financial peace and harmony? Well, in my opinion and in my experience, it starts with digging into the ways that we've been socialized and the way that society has impacted us, right? So for me as a man, I've reflected and realized that the messages I've been getting all my life is that my value and my worth is in part determined by how much money I make. If I can take care of my partner, if I can take care of, in particular, a female partner and children, right? What kind of prestige I have in my career. And even though I disagree with those things as being determinants of my value, as long as they go unacknowledged and just not dealt with, right? They're going to continue to play in the background in ways that I don't recognize. Same thing with women, right? So people of any gender need to take that look at, what are the things that society teaches people about folks who look like me, who have the attributes I have, right? And then start to wonder about, how has that affected me? Sometimes we've bought into those stereotypes, unfortunately. Sometimes we've gone the other way, and sometimes we try to be nothing like the stereotype. But either way, it's still impacting us. And in order for us to create true equity in our relationships, we're going to want to start talking about these things. And especially if you're having financial stress, this is a kind of safe way to dive into the money conversation, right? Is to just talk about your own history with money, both from what society tends to say and what stereotypes are, how you feel about those and how you think they may have impacted you. And then you also want to look around at like family dynamics and other things like this. And that's kind of an easy way to dig in and understand you and yourself and your partner better, because it doesn't really involve any things you've actually done. It's not talking about that time you went over the budget, or that time your partner went over the budget and didn't tell you that they were buying the $500 item, right? It's just very descriptive, talking about yourself. Another thing that I want to highlight here, right? I know I mentioned the way that kind of men are in general socialized. And with women, another thing beyond the wage gap and the pink tax is that women tend to be socialized that they are supposed to take on more domestic and emotional labor. So domestic labor, right, being things in the home, taking care of the kids. And again, not that this is the required path for women or anybody, but just that this is the direction that messages we're getting since we're children are kind of pushing us or pushing you, right? And incidentally, domestic labor is typically not compensated in terms of dollars. Same with emotional labor, right? Oftentimes, women end up being kind of expected to deal with a lot of the difficult conversations or relationships with family and friends or making plans and these kinds of things. And again, I'm not saying that this is the way it ought to be, but in thinking about how do we create true equity inside of our relationships, we're going to want to examine these things and are they at play, and if so, how, right? And once we do, once we acknowledge the reality of things, then we can start to roll it back and unpack it. Okay, and so, either partner may show up as defensive in these conversations. Occasionally that happens, right? But that's okay. Okay, just want to let them know this is about understanding them better, not criticizing them in particular, because that understanding and that empathy that you can give each other is going to create an opportunity for a bridge to a new conversation where you're actually in tune around your finances. So there's definitely a lot of other aspects to talking about money, but gender, sexism, and the role it plays in our money and relationships is absolutely one key, and it's a valuable place to start. And encourage you in the comments below to share how you've experienced money around your gender growing up or as an adult, how you see these things playing out and maybe impacting your psyche. And then I want to give you a takeaway action item, which is to just, take a piece of paper and just start jotting some of these things down. And add to that, what you saw from your parents and your family, what kind of things you think you were seeing on the TV and books and movies, right? Whatever those messages were. And then once you've done that, start to speculate, how maybe has this affected me and my mindset, or how has it not? And see what you discover. And you're going to start to understand yourself better. And this is going to give you more access to being grounded and powerful inside of dealing with your money.